All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today at ERA Live. Today's ERA Live session will be focused on the topic of leveling up your digital marketing, a topic that is always of interest to our members. We're excited to have our guest speakers today, G&G Creative Services, share their insights about what you can do to modernize your digital marketing toolbox, how to create a multi-channel strategy, and how to measure results. Before we get started, audience, please be sure to mute your devices. If you would like to ask a question, we ask you put it in the chat box and we will get to your questions as time allows. This session is being recorded. We post all ERA Live recordings on the ERA website and our YouTube channel within 24 hours of the session ending. And Walter Tobin, ERA's CEO, will introduce today's special guest speakers. So with that, Walter, I'll turn it over to you.
Good. Thanks, Claire. We are delighted to have Emma and Danielle from G&G Creative NYC. They're a new recognized resource of ERA to talk about digital marketing. I know that we've all been talking about this for a couple of years, but we still have people that really want to know what is it really? Why do I need to do it? What happens if I don't get into this digital marketing? What does it cost me? How do I measure ROI? Blah, blah, blah. These two very smart women are going to try to pull us all through the Gordian knot of digital marketing. So without further ado, Emma and Danielle will prepare all of us to enter the arena of digital marketing.
All right, thank you. What a nice introduction. Yeah. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through a little presentation today. And if you all can't hear us or anything, if there's any audio issues, just let us know so we can fix that.
And we might be looking in different places because we're looking at a couple different computers.
Couple different monitors. All right. You all can see the screen?
Yes.
Great. Fantastic. Cool. So like I mentioned, today we're going to dive into digital marketing, how to level up your strategy. And some of this information that we're going to share might be brand new for some of you. Some of you might already know a bunch of it. But I think our goal today is to really just conquer as much as we can and make sure you understand that there's so many different strategies, and that it's not one solution for everyone. And we'll have a Q&A at the end. And I think also you could put your questions in the chat. So
yeah, Walter, I don't know if you're going to chime in with some of the questions if they're applicable to what we're talking about, but we're happy to do that if that's easy. So
great. Cool.
Okay, so just a little bit about who we are. So we're G&G Creative, as Walter said. We're based out of New York City, and we've been working with ERA clients for a little under 10 years, and we officially became a recognized resource this year, which we're thrilled about. So we provide design, development, and digital marketing services for reps, manufacturers, and distributors. My background is in marketing, content strategy, and communications, and Danielle's background is in design, branding, and web development.
So we'll start. What is digital marketing? On the most basic level, digital marketing is marketing that uses online-based digital technologies to promote products and or services. And we recognize that might be different for all of you, but this is the overall sentiment that we're going to tackle today. So our first question is, why is that important?
So this is pretty important because nearly a third of all business is conducted online, and this number is just growing rapidly. So obviously over the last few years, it's increased pretty dramatically, with a lot of companies going hybrid or even fully remote. So basically, if your company isn't leveraging a website to attract customers and build credibility, you're not only missing a huge amount of potential business, but you're allowing your competitors to fill the gap.
Yeah, and I threw in a bunch of logos on this slide and I'm sure they're all logos that you all recognize, but there are so many different tools and technologies out there right now that I'm sure you all are using and that we teach and instruct our clients to use. So if you have any questions about any of those kind of things too, we're happy to answer those.
So just a closer look at digital marketing as it pertains to the ERA. Most ERA companies have been in business for over 25 years, and I'm assuming actually for a lot of other companies it's even bigger than that. The average age of an ERA member is 50 to 55. So on one hand, this reflects a rich history of success and expertise in the field, but it also points to a growing need for many firms to adapt and modernize and to help usher in a new generation of talent with new skill sets. And we feel like this is really exciting because digital transformation is more accessible and more cost effective than ever.
Yeah. So why is it essential that businesses enhance their digital presence? Well, in short, it increases organic traffic, which leads to conversions. So when I say organic traffic, I'm saying it's bringing people to your website. It's bringing people to learn about your brand. And you're not necessarily paying for those. When it's organic, you're not necessarily paying for that kind of traffic with ads. It's just that natural. People are naturally Googling you, Bing searching you, they're typing in your website and they're going to your website. And the first point of impression is your design. It starts with your website interface, your branding, and your website's user experience. And I think that a lot of times people think of those as design and not marketing. But something that we often stress is that you can't have design without marketing. You can't have marketing without design. It's very important for your site to look as good as it functions and vice versa.
So going off of what Danielle just said, nice design isn't just fluff, it actually matters. In fact, this statistic I feel like is really valuable, and that 94% of first impressions are completely design related. So it takes users less than 1 second to form an opinion about your business. Probably roughly the same amount of time it took you to look at this slide. You've already created an impression about it. Hopefully it's a positive one. And so not only do old websites and logos look unprofessional, but they might be legitimately hurting your business. And so what you're looking at here is an example of a website we did for the McGinnis Group. The old version is text heavy, it's dated, it's not particularly interactive. And the new version utilizes modern branding, a clickable territory map, and follows design thinking. So it encourages potential customers to take action. You can see that the contact button over in the right-hand corner there. So the updated version is geared more towards conversions and interactions and less just like you're going to get a little bit of information. And so here's a deeper look at the power of modern branding. We're going to use McGinnis Group again as an example, and also Major Custom Cable, who actually just relaunched their brand and website yesterday. So it's a shout out to them. But with MCC, you can see that the new logo uses a bolder, less playful red with a sleeker, more tech-forward aesthetic. And then with the McGinnis logo, it incorporates the ground symbol, which is a nod to the industry, and utilizes a cleaner typeface for modern innovation. And from our perspective, both updated logos exude professionalism and trust.
So it's also important to note here, when we're designing logos and brands, we're often thinking about the end user, and that's that's the way it functions under a marketing vertical. So we're not building, it's really fun to build a logo because there's a lot of art and creativity that goes along with it, but we're truly thinking, what would impress the end user, and also how can we use this logo in application? It's important to think, how does your logo look on a huge banner at a conference? How does it look on a booth? How do your colors appear in print if you're getting merch done? That's a big thing that we think of because that all goes into marketing. When doing Major Custom Cable, we were designing, what their potential booth can look like, and the red, and they also used a gold accent, which we don't have in this presentation right now, but you can imagine the red and gold look really good together, but that presents differently in print. So these are all different things that we consider when designing branding, because branding is marketing, right? It's your story. It's how you're displaying yourself to your potential leads, your potential customers.
Yeah, I was going to chime in too and say one of the bits of feedback we got from folks that saw these logos were like, well, this looks really new. This looks like these are tech companies. And I think for us that's the goal, is that we want to be moving every company forward, ushering in a new generation as companies evolve. And so that's always the sentiment with branding. So this stat probably has the greatest impact on firms in this space, and it's that 88% of users won't return to a site after a bad experience. So if your website doesn't have a clear value proposition, a working contact form, or mobile compatibility, you might lose this person forever. They're just not going to come back. And so it's good to note too that over half of website traffic comes from mobile now, which makes it even more important to make sure that your site is optimized for all devices. And all of the websites we build are mobile optimized, but a lot of the older sites we see, they haven't been updated in a long time, so they're not really working on mobile, which means if someone's accessing your site on their mobile device, which most of the time they're not really going to be able to use it.
Yeah, I want to make two notes here. The first note is when we say mobile, we actually mean it's responsive, which is a little different than just typical, your website shows well on a desktop and it shows well on a iPhone, right? Or on a Android, whatever cellular device you have. It actually means that your website can flex between the biggest desktop there is into the smallest cell phone there is, right? And it might not be perfect all the time. There are some issues that may happen. For example, if you're on a very small, like I think the iPhone SE is a random example, has a very small screen. The video might look different if you're using a video header. And, this can impact your marketing because you don't want people to go to your site, on their cell phone and then it's taking forever to load. So we consider these kind of things when building sites, and I encourage you all to do the same. An example is if you have a video on the background of your header, is to not have it be on autoplay for mobile. So there's a way that you can, in the back end of your website, set it so that this is just the logic, if user enters on mobile, then don't autoplay video, meaning it'll show an image instead of a video, and that will improve the loading time, which, if, as Emma said, 88% of online users won't return to your website if the video is taking forever to load. So that's the first thing. And then I think the second thing is just in general, you have to consider different browsers. Some people are using Outlook, some people are using Google Chrome. There's a ton of different browsers. So that's something else that we consider when building, because that will also decrease your site loading time and just the general user experience. So in addition to design, there are other website components and content that we encourage all of our clients to use, anyone that we speak to across different industries. We use blogs to share information with your customers. It helps build authority and trust over your competitors. We encourage everyone to collect email addresses on their website so that they can leverage that for email newsletter marketing. It's a great way to get in front of your leads and to nurture your relationship with them. And then case studies showcase your past work, white papers. It showcases your knowledge within the industry, and the thoughtfulness and, your team's knowledge in terms of different verticals within your industry. And, all of that seems nice and good, all having that content, but this all goes into keywords. So all this content adds keywords to your website. And that brings us to search engines like Google and Bing.
Yeah, so aside from the optics and general usability, older websites just don't perform well on search engines. So this means like your site will literally not show on Google if it's not technically up to date. And it's no surprise, but Google accounts for 92% of all global online traffic. So really focusing on SEO and Google Ads is less of an option and a little bit more of a necessity. If your website isn't ranking on the first page of Google, it may as well not exist. And if you think about your own user experience of trying to find something on Google, chances are good if you're not finding it within the first few scrolls, you're not going to go to page 2, 3, 4, 5 to find it. You're just going to assume it's not there. So this just goes back to the fact that it's not only about design, it's really about having a site that's going to be able to rank in Google.
Okay. So there are also deeper technical solutions that help your overall digital presence. A lot of the things that we were just mentioning had to do with specifically the design and the interface that you're greeted by when you go to a website. But the next layer is accessibility, which isn't just a nice to have. This directly impacts your website's SEO, so your ranking on Google. It's also a legal requirement. So any website in any industry needs to be accessible, or you leave yourself open to potential lawsuits, which is unfortunately becoming a more common thing that we've been seeing. If you ever go to a website and you see the little ADA logo in the bottom left or right, it's typically where they are. It's you could see in our screenshot on the bottom right. This is the accessibility plugin that that company has installed on their website, and we install this on all of our websites that we build. So not only does it make it easier for all of your users to use your website, it also leads to lower bounce rates and higher engagement on your website, which then gives you a higher score on Google. So again, this organic traffic is really impacted by, just simply being accessible. Poor interactions on your website basically hurt your Google rankings over time. So the bottom line is improving your accessibility on your website improves your rankings on Google.
And another thing that we didn't touch on already with accessibility, it's like you want everyone to be able to use your website. So if they're vision impaired or they have, other specific learning differences, you want them to be able to still use your site. Otherwise, you're alienating a huge chunk of your potential customers. So there really is that component of it too. It's just a nice thing to do for people.
And it's legal.
And it's nice. And you should do it because it's a legal requirement.
And that also brings us to another component on the website, which is a clear privacy policy, cookie consent forms, and an EULA, which is an end user license agreement. These are all critical on your website. It helps you comply with regulations like GDPR and TCPA, which we've had a lot of people ask us about in the past. So in the end, it's really just about building trust with your website visitors. When users see that your site is upfront about how their data is being used or being stored, are more likely to stay on your website. And to be honest, I don't typically want to fill out a contact form unless I see this kind of information on the site. It just makes it credible. It makes the site look credible, it makes the business look credible, just less scammy. And we install these on all of our websites. And the way ours works, which I think is pretty cool, not to toot our own horns, but they're auto updating, meaning it's a plugin that we install on your website and it's constantly crawling legal requirements for data policies. And so it constantly and automatically adapts to the law. So it's kind of one of those plugins where you set it and forget it, and it auto updates as time goes on and as laws change.
Yeah, and then not to mention, you're going to be saving a lot of money not having to call up your lawyer and say, hey, can you make sure that we're still legally compliant every year? Because this is going to handle that for you. So the cost savings in the end really are there.
Yeah. Yes. And again, I feel like we'll beat this to death, but search engines take this into account, that your site looks credible, that you have people filling out your contact forms, and they will boost you up in rankings. And finally, maybe most importantly, your site has to be hosted by a trusted provider. So it's basically your hosting is the foundation of your website's performance. A good host guarantees higher uptime, meaning your site is always accessible to visitors, and search engines take note of that. Like I discussed before, faster loading times contribute directly to better rankings and better UX. And I think right now, data privacy is such a big deal. So a good host protects against cyber attacks, just keeps your site safe. We provide hosting for all of our clients. So we're happy to talk about that. But I think, what's really important to us is providing tailored hosting solutions for all of our clients, which differentiates us from bigger providers like GoDaddy. GoDaddy and those larger hosting platforms, they don't typically take into consideration the needs of a small business or a small business
Right.
website.
So some of you might be thinking, because we hear this a lot, okay, this all sounds nice, this looks nice, but my website isn't really that important to my business, so why should I spend money on this? What is this really gonna get me? And we get that, but here's why that's not necessarily the right thinking when it comes to digital marketing. So the first thing is you can't really understand ROI until you've properly studied the results. And there are many tools that help companies measure website traffic and customer behavior. Our number one, our go-to is Google Analytics. So Google Analytics tracks traffic and user behavior, like page views, clicks, site searches, file downloads. And this is all essential information for an organization to see what is attracting the most attention on their site, and it helps to inform business decisions. So all of the websites we build come with Google tools set up and ready to go, and we're always happy to show any of our clients how to use them. Another great tool is Hotjar. So with Hotjar, you can use heat maps and session recordings that will show you exactly where users engage on your website and where they drop off and how they're using the search bar, for example. So you might see a spike in visits to a specific product, and then this might encourage your sales team to spend more time on the specific product or line, or to better promote this on the website or in sales collateral. So this kind of goes back to that question about ROI. You're really not going to be able to make informed decisions until your website is set up in a way that can have you actually track what's happening so that you can pivot and move forward accordingly.
And diving deeper into the world of all that is Google, again, Google, the better you help Google understand your website, the better it will rank your website. So we use two other free tools that boost your site's visibility and track key user actions, which informs your ROI. And I'll explain them briefly. This all might sound a bit technical, but we think it's worth mentioning. So, and you can see the screenshots, like it's very technical in the back end, but most of these tools, especially Google, does a really good job at presenting this information in a way that's informative and helpful for you to make business decisions. We had to block a lot of this information because this is client information and data on where they're getting their traffic. But you can see on these screenshots, and we'll send this presentation so you all have it, but you can see that it's telling you your top growing pages, it's telling you your top performing pages, but it's also telling you in top performing queries where what are people searching to get to your website? And this is, I think, super important. And when it comes to, line cards, products, manufacturers represented, you want to understand why people are going to your website and how they're using it. And I meant to mention this before when I got so caught up in mobile responsiveness, but Emma mentioned, over half of internet traffic is coming from mobile. We've seen more than half, and a lot of our clients, like I'm talking maybe like 75%, like it's kind of just an average and an estimate, but on first touch, it's often on a phone. You meet someone at a conference, you hear a name of a person or a provider, you hear a name of a company, a business, or a brand, you Google them, and then you go to their site. And then hopefully when you get home or the next work day, you go on your desktop and look at it. So your site has to look right in both on both times. But yeah, you can see through Google Search Console, they're telling us how many people are coming from a desktop, from mobile, from a tablet, what countries they're coming from, and how they're using your website.
Yeah, I was going to chime in on that too. So we had actually spoken to a manufacturer who they were using Hotjar to track what customers were doing, and they actually reached out to us to say, well, we decided that we want to completely change our product page because we're seeing that everyone that's coming to our site, they're not even going to it. They're just going straight to the search bar up at the top and searching that way, which was actually creating all of these additional steps. So that's just another way that, looking at this data and this information helps you, one, be able to, inform what kind of design you want on the site, but two, really what your customers are doing And then again, you can pivot and make sound business decisions because you actually have data to back that up. It's not just an instinct or a thought or what someone told you one time.
Yep. And, you know, we've been talking about, you know, how people are getting to your website, but we'll also on the next slide discuss like what they're actually doing in your website that are helpful to track. But I just wanted to make one last point is that a lot of the Google Suite products, and there's a lot of other, you know, tools out there, they're free. A lot of them are no code, meaning that they're just snippets of information that you can add to your website and you don't have to change like any HTML or JavaScript. Like it's pretty simple to install. As Emma mentioned, we install this on all of our clients' websites, and it's just good to see over time, you know, how your website's performing. It's just good to track it. You don't even have to look at it every day. It's not the most important. It doesn't have to be priority, but it's good to keep on your website so it's tracking over time. So a modern functional website can be a powerful source of business information, as Emma said. It's almost like your website is an employee on your team that's helping you make sound business decisions. They're providing data insights to help you make those decisions. They're like using these Google tools. They're accessible. This information is accessible. In the past, there are a lot of, you know, I'm talking a while back, but a lot of these tools used to be very expensive or they would be difficult to install. That's no longer the case. So we encourage our clients to install those tools to be able to track different things such as form submissions, phone calls, transactions, downloads such as line cards and data sheets, and purchases. So using those tools, you can actually track these kind of things. It's interesting, you know, when we are managing our clients' accounts, we often, you know, touch base with them weekly and we say, you know, we recognize somebody clicked the phone number on your website X amount of times this week. What did that lead to? And it's really important for us to be able to track those leads to see how they're converting.
Yeah, and we actually, just as a real life example, we had a client who we were seeing that they were getting all these conversions on a contact form, but they were like, none of these calls or emails are coming through. And this was going on for probably like 8 months by the time they got to us. And we said, oh, well, it's going to this email. And it was someone that hadn't worked for the company for like 5 years. So little things like that, you know, these little pieces of data that you might just miss because you're not looking at it. So it's good to have that extra set of eyes and also somebody to interpret it and tell you like, hey, this is actually what's going on here.
Yes. And another important part of that is, again, within a similar client is vetting those leads. This is really important. So we had a client had an enormous amount of leads to this one phone number and email address. And we were pumped at first because we're like, wow, this is great. But we found out that it was an HR line. And so they were calling for jobs. So people were calling to inquire about employment opportunities, which was not something we were focusing on at the time. So it's important to know, you know, to track where where website visitors are actually clicking on the site, because it's not just like, oh, they clicked on this button, great conversion. No, it's, you know, somebody clicked on this very specific phone number for this very specific reason. And being able to have that information definitely helps. I love seeing data sheet downloads. I feel like, not to be the most like ERA nerd person, but being able to see those data sheet downloads really does help inform the way people are going to your site. When we're working with manufacturers, we've seen that, we've been able to report on it. It helps run, you know, if we're gonna do an ad for a manufacturer and we see a lot of people downloading a very specific line or data sheets, we might use those images in the ad. Just saying, like, you know, we'll meet people where they're at.
Yep.
So just running through this, like if you're a rep, knowing which product categories attract the most visits can help you focus your sales efforts. If you're a manufacturer or distributor, seeing an increase in searches for certain products can inform your product strategies.
And all of that we've talked about, this is really just one part of it in terms of organic website traffic and site visits. So you can level up your strategy even more by deploying digital ads. So ads are an amazing way to get in front of your target customer, and you don't necessarily need thousands of dollars to make an impact, which can sometimes be a misconception. People think, oh, if I don't have thousands and thousands of dollars for an ad budget, then it's not going to do anything. We've actually seen really good results with smaller budgets, so that's just something to note. And with ad platforms like LinkedIn, for example, this is great for this specific industry because with a compelling visual ad, you can get as granular as targeting a specific company or a specific job title at that company to get in front of the exact person that you want to get in front of. So it's a really good example of how targeted an ad can actually be. And, you know, when we talk about ROI, like that's about as good as it's going to get in front of getting in terms of getting an ad in front of the exact person that you're trying to sell. And we've already talked about the importance of Google. I promise we're not sponsored by Google, but it's really important. And Google search ads help your company appear in the top results of relevant search terms. So this just gives you a leg up on the competition. And it also makes it a lot easier for your clients and customers to find you.
We aren't sponsored by Google, but we've also seen similar results on Bing with
Yes.
similar strategies crossover to Bing.
Yeah.
It's just a slightly different beast, but
Yeah.
we've run ads on multiple platforms, and I feel like there's very similar strategies.
Yeah, like when we talk about Google search ads, we're also in a way including Bing in that. Especially with this space because you all are very invested in Microsoft products. It's not necessarily the case for other industries, but because you're already using them a lot, the Bing search actually is just as accessible sometimes to Google. So yeah, we would also recommend Bing ads as well.
Yes, I think we've seen the greatest success, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not the marketing person, but Bing and LinkedIn
Yes.
paired really well together.
Yep.
Which leads us to, you know, multi-channel marketing, because, you know, those are entirely different beasts, Bing, LinkedIn. So when people mention multi-channel marketing, they're basically talking about showing up in all the right places, but digitally, like posting on LinkedIn. So just typical posts on LinkedIn, or running ad campaigns on LinkedIn, sharing blog posts on your website, and, you know, sharing that across different social media, and running different kinds of ads on Google or Bing. And there are different types of ads. And I think for us, what we typically tell people, because we know this is a lot, right? But just staying active, kind of like staying active in any capacity of your life, the more you do it, the more return you see, right? So by being active on multiple platforms, your brand stays visible, you reach more people, and you create more opportunities for them to engage with you or to contact you, leading to higher conversion rates.
And another part of this too, with the marketing, is retargeting ads. We're big proponents of running any kind of retargeting ads whenever you can, especially if you are promoting a lot of content in other places. Essentially, retargeting ads just ensure that anyone who visits your site but doesn't take action, so if they don't send an email or they don't click the call button, they'll likely be served your ad again. So that's just keeping your most interested people in front of all of your ads. And all of this is to say, all of these ad platforms provide insights and analytics to see what's converting and what's not. And we're obviously happy to help interpret that because it's not always easy to learn every platform. But all of this just really helps your organization track the effectiveness of your ad spend and then to better understand the return on these efforts. And then, yeah, of course, all that data that you take helps you to better understand how to actually deploy your website and to use it more effectively.
Right. I think something that's been really helpful for us with a lot of our clients is just understanding, you know, their CPA, their cost per acquisition, understanding how that they can scale that up. So for example, I'm not good at math, so I'm not going to even try this, but if you got, you know, 100 leads off of one ad and it costs $1,000, you guys can do the math on how to scale that up, right? I did the simplest numbers. I'm still not gonna, it's too many people for me to even fake that I'm good at math. But basically it helps. We've had a client who's had a really amazing CPA, and we told them, you know, put in X amount more and you'll see that return. Yeah, X amount return. And it's worked really well. It's not perfect. It's never perfect process, but I will say that Emma has worked with our marketing specialist, and the goal really is always to fine tune your campaigns. A lot of people, if you have a large budget, yes, you can set it and forget it, and you scale your budget up and you hope that you can see better conversions. But really, with these smaller companies, and doing smaller ad campaigns, smaller budgets, you really want to do like a weekly or bi-weekly check-in to see, how your ads are performing and where you can enhance them. We did run an ad once targeting ERA people, and it was really interesting to see what you all were clicking on. Because you were clicking on I'll just give an example of what we take into consideration. So there's the ad creative, right? What the ad actually looks like, the image. And then there's a little text, like a title, and then there's a call to action, which is that button. You all really liked images of people working together, which I thought was really nice. You liked, it was blue, so if that's helpful, you really liked the color blue. And it was very direct. I think the ad that ended up performing the best was like the most direct ad, which is basically like, hey, we're here to help you build, improve your website and your marketing strategies.
One thing that was telling for me as a marketer was I actually believe the ad copy was
It was a little shaming.
Engineers are looking for your website, but they can't find it. And that got a lot of traction, which I think if everybody's here listening in, it might be because there's a little bit of you that might think that you could do a little bit more with your website. So yeah, that's you've come to the right place.
Yes, for sure. So we totally get that everything we're running through is kind of a lot of work. It seems like it's a lot of work, but I think we wanted to stress that everything can be done one at a time. It can be done step by step.
Baby steps.
Baby steps. We actually encourage our clients to approach it strategically. You start with a rebrand, which leads to a new website and collateral, so marketing assets, print and digital. And then that leads to a new website, and then you can layer in ads over time. So it's a lot of different avenues to tackle, but if you do it strategically, it's manageable. And it also helps you see your ROI. It helps you to understand, oh, well, a rebrand, I see a lot of traction because we release a lot of information about a rebrand. Well, then that's something you can focus on is, showcasing your brand in more places. Maybe it's getting into more publications with your new logo or your new story. It's seeing things as building blocks instead of, go and do everything all at once.
Yep.
So I think what we wanted to, we'll take questions, of course, we'll do a Q&A, but we just wanted to offer this to you all like a whole, a no obligation consultation. It's something we actually really love to do. We like to sit down with businesses, with companies, and that could be anyone from the company owners to the head of marketing at a company, and just discuss your brand strategy and identify potential areas for growth. During those sessions, we typically just open the books, right? Let's discuss what has worked for you in the past and what hasn't, and maybe we can put together a little roadmap. And then we can also dive deeper into, your CPAs, your lifetime value of your users that are visiting your website, how people are using your website. I love doing website audits where I go through not only the brand, but I just click around. I'm just like, why do you have this button here? This isn't in the right place. I can't even figure out how to contact you. I should be able to figure out how to contact you within those first, 10 to 20 seconds they hit your website. So that's a big part of, what we like to do. I think another part is just speaking through the products that we mentioned. So making sure you're using the right hosting and the right plugins. I do want to talk about this as a big thing that I've noticed within the ERA community is a lot of people are paying a lot of money for different products on GoDaddy or Bluehost, on Microsoft, across the board. And we've done audits in the past where we can help you not only save money, but better utilize the platforms that you're already using. I think that's really important. We've worked with a client in the past where we were going through their email platform, where they have their email addresses. And I was just like, you're using too much here. You can scale back and take that money and put it into something else. You can take that and put it into an ad budget. We also have another client who has been collecting email addresses over time, and they just have been storing all these email addresses for marketing, but they're not actually sending emails to them. So they're paying for the storage for that. So it's these small things that can really improve, these small digital things that can really improve your operations, or, you know, your growth strategies.
Yeah. I was also gonna say that there might be some folks on this call that like, this could even be way more advanced and you're just coming from a place of like, well, I just need a new logo and I actually just need a site. Like it might not really have a working site. And that's okay too. Like you can start in baby steps. Doesn't have to be all about ads and Google Analytics just yet. Like we can just start with the basics too, if that's where you are. Because any little change or any baby step forward is going to be a good thing.
Yeah. So Q&A. I've been seeing this thing going on the whole time.
Yes, we have a lot of questions, which I knew there would be. Great session. So let's see, where should we begin? ATL Electronics, I feel like you have a lot of questions. You want to unmute yourself and maybe ask one or two to Emma and Danielle?
Okay, give me just 1 second. This is Carlos Una from ATL. Let me turn on my camera okay, can you hear me? So, well, I asked a few questions because I'm very interested in everything that is digital media. And I wanted to check, without saying names, if there is any rep already in US that already use your services. And if you can share any successful cases. Also, the other question is, especially on LinkedIn, that is, at least to my opinion, is very important. And how do you measure if a post is successful or not, to your opinion? Is about the views, about the, I mean, how do you, I would like to hear your opinion about it.
Yeah. So I can answer one part of that. So everybody's going to define ROI a little bit differently. With one specific client that we worked with, we got into their Google Analytics before we relaunched the website, and we added a whole, essentially just product section, a searchable product section that didn't exist before. And before we did that, they were averaging like, I don't know, 50 web visits a week, maybe. And then after we launched it, we were seeing 300, 400, 500 visits a day with very specific searches on products themselves, where we were able to go back to the client and say, okay, so not only has traffic immediately increased because the site is now more usable for your actual client, we're seeing specific product searches that we can come to you and say, all right, well, with this specific product, I believe it was thermal gel, we're seeing all of these searches here. This is valuable information for you to now go to your sales team and talk about how you might want to be promoting this a little bit more, because the search traffic for it has essentially skyrocketed now that the site has launched. So that just goes back to being able to actually use the data to make informed business decisions. And then in terms of where that ROI ends up for them, I mean, that's going to be more on the client side where they're actually looking at their revenues. But for us, I think that that's a success metric that we can look at, where we saw just an overall better increase in site traffic and behavior.
How long do you think it will take? 3, 6 months, 9 months to start to see?
It's a great question. I mean, there's really no direct answer, unfortunately. And some of these things are a little bit less tangible, and that like appearances obviously make a huge difference, but you might not see the results of that brand makeover, you know, within weeks, but it's something that maybe a year down the road, you're getting a lot more meetings or calls with someone because they're seeing you as a different kind of professional. But I would say just from like website ROI, absolutely 3 to 6 months would be very doable. To see sales revenue skyrocketing, I'm not really sure. I mean, I think that that's really going to depend on the individual organization, but I wouldn't be surprised if companies could report an increase within a year.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, my last question about LinkedIn, because there are several questions from the audience about LinkedIn. To your opinion, what is the best way to be more successful at LinkedIn?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
I'm just reading the question is, are you referring to?
To your opinion of using your services, what do you do to, let's say, to create a campaign and make LinkedIn successful? It's about the post, about the followers, about the interactions. What is your opinion about it?
Yeah, from an organic or an ad campaign?
Or
point
just
of view?
both.
Both.
I think he was asking about posts, like a LinkedIn post.
Yep.
What makes it
Correct.
successful? So is it views or is it clicks or?
Yeah, I mean, I can chime in if you
Yeah.
do. So I think with LinkedIn, the biggest thing is actually just utilizing it consistently and regularly. You'll see with some just company leaders and companies in general, they post like once every few months, and that's just not going to cut it. Like if you really want LinkedIn to be a source of connection and networking, you have to be on there really consistently. And I know that there's a lot of folks here in this space that do this really well. Not only are they posting consistent updates, they're connecting with other people, they're creating blog posts, they're just generating content that not only shows that they're active and engaged, but to your point, it's going to drive clicks and engagement and comments. And then this is going to start to just move you essentially in the algorithm in front of people's faces a lot more often, which that's a complete organic strategy that doesn't require any money. It's just time to be able to do that. But LinkedIn isn't always the best for every industry, but I think for this space, it really is. And, I would love to hear feedback from folks, but it seems like a lot of people in this space really are on LinkedIn quite often. And so if I were in this space, I would be using that as much as possible with company updates, with networking, inviting people to events. That would be my approach with it.
Yeah, and just to go off that is, we've seen people doing thought leadership on LinkedIn, meaning posting, but I think that what's really important is the social listening aspect too, which is like responding to comments, commenting on other people's posts. It's a kind of a give and take type of platform where in my, I did a bit of thought leadership on LinkedIn at one point, and I think that my best traction came from the conversations I was starting or the conversations I was becoming a part of.
Right.
Because it's all algorithm based, right? It's all just posting and pushing information out there doesn't necessarily mean that LinkedIn or any other social media channel for that matter is going to push you into the algorithm. You have to kind of be relevant. You have to post and discuss with other people. You have to tag people in your posts or tag other companies in your posts and vice versa. Be tagged in other people's posts. That's just exposure. And in terms of just, you were saying, like from a design perspective, I feel like it's really engaging to be posting images or even presentations on LinkedIn. I think that's important for the thought leadership factor. If you're posting these kinds of things on your websites, they should also be being posted on LinkedIn as well. Emma and I have also been a part of LinkedIn listening sessions, which have been really helpful for companies in terms of visibility. There's no real, we can't really fully measure ROI on it because again, visibility isn't, you can't always assign, a dollar sign to it. But we've had people we've worked with in the past host simple listening sessions on LinkedIn, which is kind of like a live podcast in a sense. And you invite guests on it. And you just find a subject matter and speak through it. And usually in the end, it's less about how many people attended and more so about, did those people attend your listening session? Did they contact you after? And we've almost always seen that happen.
Yeah.
It's an excellent networking tactic.
And it's all free.
Yes.
So again, time is money, but if you're willing to put in some time to, just learn how to use this, it's a great tool that you might not even have to go into the paid ad strategy if you can make this work for you. So.
Thank you very much. I don't want to take more time from you. I will let the
Thank you.
the rest of the audience.
You did have a question that I want to address really quickly. I'm sorry. When you asked ROI in terms of 3-6 months or a year, We had a client, a rep, and their website wasn't indexing on Google at all because of a hosting issue they were having. So they had a website, the host of the website wasn't allowing their site to properly index. We took over, we rebuilt their website, we put them on our hosting, they're using our hosting, and they immediately started indexing. We are not doing marketing for them yet, but because we launched the website not too long ago. But I suspect that I would love to dig into their Google Analytics a little more just to see what the flip was from when our hosting put them and started ranking them in Google. And they are ranking pretty high in Google for company name terms. So meaning if you're searching for their name, that is difficult again to measure ROI because it takes a little bit of time, but that was immediate. You would at least see it immediately happen.
Thank you very
Hey,
much.
Claire.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. Yes, John, you have a comment. Yes.
Yeah. If I could just chime in here, the gentleman with ATL asked the question if there were any reps that have experience with G&G, and I can maybe chime in there because I was one of their first clients about 10 years ago. And at that point, I was at a digital crossroads almost. Like I'm a salesperson. I'm not really a marketing person, definitely not a digital marketing person. And I quickly discovered that I was very intimidated about what I knew I needed to embrace. There's all kinds of lingo and that I'm just not familiar with. It's not my lane. And G&G did a terrific job making me realize that with their assistance, I can develop something. And one key thing, it was not only the intimidation because of the lingo and everything. There was frankly a cost issue. I was very, very concerned about cost, and their a la carte menu allowed me to take the baby steps that Danielle referenced earlier. And as a result, I was able to build exactly the way they recommend, to start with the digital presence, then get the brand, and then enjoy the user experience. So I just want to reinforce a lot what was said and direct that towards the answer from the gentleman with ATL. The other key thing is to answer his question, or at least to shine some light on it relative to LinkedIn. I saw my traffic go up exponentially after doing my rebrand. I suddenly, I can't help but reflect back on an email that I got from an engineer. It was shared by one of my salespeople. And when an engineer said, "Hey, I realize you have a new logo in your signature. I want you to know that it's very professional. I like it." That really, really stuck with me about, so people are paying attention. And I was always concerned about our audience because a rep has an audience of customers, of manufacturers, of distributors alike. And I got positive feedback, be it in social media and LinkedIn about my rebranding, and be it just traditional communications from all three of my members of my audience via email. And with LinkedIn, if you're trying to develop a LinkedIn strategy and you haven't addressed the back end with your website and your brand, it could be very, very counterproductive. I would encourage you to take the baby steps that Danielle referenced in order to have a stronger ecosystem, digital ecosystem, so to speak. So I just felt obligated. He asked for any testimony from a rep, and I felt obligated to share.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
John, thanks so much. Okay, we have a lot of participation. We'll try to get to some questions. I see Brent Corsetto, you had a couple of really good questions. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and ask
Sure.
Danielle.
Yeah, real quick. I remember I was a marketing major in college, and I remember this was the early 2000s, so this might be outdated, but are meta tags and alt tags sort of embedded in graphics and everything that still improves SEO? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes,
100%.
A common thing that we see with a lot of our clients, they just don't think about that, but it really does make a difference. Yeah.
Okay. Another big question I have is I'm kind of seeing that, kind of like John had mentioned, we're salespeople, we're not necessarily marketing people, but I know from the ERA the last conference I attended, it was really kind of bridging the gap between sales and marketing. It's becoming much more important for us in a more digital age, post-COVID world where you're not meeting people as often face to face and having those interactions. The question is, though, it's the World Wide Web. It's not the territory wide web. So how do I get a good ROI number based on the traffic that I'm generating from the efforts that I'm making on my manufacturer's behalf? So we do, and by the way, we have, although we aren't tracking it using Google Analytics, but that's one of the things that I had written down to start maybe using. But we have had successes. Actually, one of my principals reached out to me and said, "Hey, nice job promoting our product. We were on the first page of the Google searches when you search, for a specific thing, because we have blog postings on our website or sort of news updates that we use on behalf of our principals." But how do we can we get that surgical with the tracking where we can say, okay, this business probably was generated because this customer clicked on this link when we did this action and basically improved our principals rankings on a Google search, for example?
Yeah, so the first thing is there are tools out there like SEMrush. Have you used SEMrush or?
No.
Okay. That some of these are paid, so I feel like,
Yeah.
and we're not sponsored by any of them yet.
Okay.
But there are tools out there that help you to see what keywords you're ranking for. So for example, if your website as a rep, you're ranking for principals, key terms, or company name, then that would be really good to know, right? That would be really informative, and you can push that information. So yes, there's that. But two, what you're asking, can you track those? Yes, you can. What's the name of it? When you're
Pixel?
yeah, through Pixels as oh my gosh, my non-marketing brain. There's ways to be able to track when somebody clicks on something. So events in Google Analytics, you can set up key events, and that allows you to track how people got to your website, how they got to that page, what they clicked on that page, and what it was leading to. And typically what you can narrow it down to is like time and day, and that allows you to be able to track it. The only issue is we discovered this with a manufacturer who was putting their distributors on their website, and DigiKey as another example on their website, links to DigiKey. We can only track it so far.
Yep.
So we would tell them the time and date around, these kind of actions were occurring. And then we would follow up with DigiKey or whoever it is to find out when the sale actually happened, or, when the lead progressed. But it's sometimes it's an imperfect process. I think that we're still learning about it. And I think that there's a lot of tools, especially AI tools coming out. We didn't even, go that far in this presentation that help with that kind of tracking. But we're looking out for it, especially with as GA progresses into being able to set up more complex key events.
Okay. What was it? You said Sam something?
SEMrush. Yeah, SEMrush.
We were actually going to include that in our presentation and thought that maybe it was going a little bit too far. So that's good intel maybe for next time. But yeah, part two.
Part two. Okay. I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. We're coming up to the hour. I don't know if you want to go to your last slide just so we can get it up and people can see it before we have to sign off.
I do want to mention that we will be in Austin, that we will be participating
as a recognized resource.
Yes, and that I think it'd be really fun to meet you all out there. But if you want to email us beforehand so we can plan, what we'll be looking at, because some people, if you want to focus on your website, if you want to focus on your brand or marketing, like we said, baby steps. So give us that kind of context to help us help you.
Yeah. And one last thing I just want to throw out too is that we're just part of the team. Like we have a technical partner that is a developer that could also answer a lot of questions or talk to you a little bit deeper about your website. If it's something that goes beyond where we are at. We also have a Google Ads specialist on our team that would be happy to answer questions. So even if there's stuff that we didn't cover, there are other folks on our team that would be happy to chime in and answer some questions at another date.
Wonderful. Okay. Walter, any final thoughts before I close the call?
I thought that was brilliant, and, you know, we vetted G&G as a recognized resource, and they're available, they're one of us, and they're available to help you with the digital marketing campaign, and they're smart and they can help. So thanks a lot, Danielle and Emma, great job, and hopefully any of you that come in Austin, they'll be there, but maybe don't wait till Austin, that's 5 months away, and we all need to get started.
Yes, 100%. Baby steps too. So we're not gonna overwhelm you. We're just gonna,
Or big steps if you prefer.
yeah, that's what you want.
Well, thank you all. Thank
Yeah.
you, Walter. Thank you,
Thank
Claire.
you.
Really
Yeah,
appreciate
we
it.
appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Emma and Danielle, for taking the time to share your insight with us today. This was great. I know some of you didn't, we didn't get to your questions. Feel free to, I know they can probably contact you guys, right? And email you.
I'm gonna throw our emails in the chat. Just so you know.
Sure. That would be great. And
Yeah.
as a reminder, we are recording this session, and I will put this recording up on our website and our YouTube channel within 24 hours. This was the last scheduled ERA Live for the year, so we thank you all for your attendance and your support, and please look out for new ERA Live sessions to start after the new year. So thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Gracias, amigo. Goodbye.